Hello, True Health Seeker, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Learn True Health podcast. Today I have with you possibly one of my most favorite interviews I have ever done so far. It's hard to compare each guest as they are all so amazing, but I left my interview with Dr. Darrell Wolfe feeling so inspired, so uplifted, and so excited to share this episode. In fact, I'm really thrilled to make sure that my loved ones have a listen to this, especially because what he shares is incredible. Now, I first learned about Dr. Darrell Wolfe, who's quite a famous doctor in the natural medicine arena. He's been practicing for over 35 years, and he's a natural medicine doctor who's studied around the world and has been helping people reverse major illnesses and things that, quite frankly, no one else has been able to help cure, including cancer. I discovered him through following Ty Bollinger and Ty Bollinger's work, such as the documentary series, The Truth About Cancer. I highly recommend, if you have not watched it, even if you don't have cancer, take the time to go to learntruehealth.com/cancer and check out Ty Bollinger's The Truth About Cancer. Prevention is so much more important than we could ever imagine these days, especially since 1 in 2 women will develop cancer in their lifetime and 1 in 3 men. That is such a ridiculous statistic. We really need to make changes in this world if we're dropping like flies from diseases that are absolutely preventable and curable. And Dr. Darrell Wolfe is here today to teach us exactly what we can do to begin to get our health back. So buckle in, make sure you share this interview with those that you love. In fact, if you're listening to this episode because someone shared it with you, it means they love you and they want the best for you. I'm so thrilled that we're here today to bring this information to you. Let's turn this ripple into a tidal wave and share this with as many people as possible, because suffering is optional. There are answers out there to be able to live healthy, long, vibrant, and joyous lives filled with love. And that's exactly what I want for you. Please go to learntruehealth.com/cancer and check out Ty Bollinger's The Truth About Cancer, and enjoy today's interview with Dr. Darrell Wolfe. Welcome to the Learn True Health podcast. I'm your host, Ashley James. This is episode 145. We have with us today a superstar in the holistic health field. Dr. Darrell Wolfe has been helping people for over 35 years, helping them to reverse disease naturally, help them to support them in their body detoxing and their body curing disease, curing its own cancer, healing autoimmune disease. These are really big hitters. So many people are suffering needlessly from these issues, and Dr. Darrell Wolfe is absolutely amazing. He has put together an intricate system that allows us to learn how we can get our health back. So I'm so excited to have you here. I've loved watching your videos. I saw you with Ty Bollinger and when he interviewed you, and I just loved what you had to say about holistic health and the body's ability to heal itself. And I had to have you on the show because I know my listeners really want to achieve true health, and I know that's exactly what you do. So I'm so thrilled to have you here today.
Thank you so much, Ashley, and it's a pleasure to be here. And you have such a wonderful show, and I appreciate what you do because you get the word out.
Absolutely. Now, what I would love to know is I'd love to hear your story. Please share your story. What led you to be the healer that you are today?
Well, like anything, it's a long journey, right? We'd all like to have things just overnight happen for us, but it started back when I was 19 years old, and I was just ready to complete high school. And I was not sure what I was going to do with my life. And then my mother called me and said that my grandfather was coming to stay with us because he had colon-rectal cancer. And so, anyways, he came to stay with us. And when he stayed with us, he was in very severe pain. And what happened was, I noticed when he was staying that we were crippled. He was crippled. Um, we weren't just crippled on how we could help him, but I was emotionally crippled. When I take a look back then and I realized how the family curse had bitten all of us. And when I say the family curse, it's the inability to process your emotions properly and replaying the same old tape over and over again unconsciously and never really being alert to what you think about or who you are or what your belief systems are. So first of all, I realized that when I look back on that, I was continually suffering because that is what really causes dis-ease, which causes the disease, is when we can't help family members. So when we can't take action, then we become reactive, and when we become reactive, that is the worst thing you'll ever do, because the same emotion that you have for anxiety is the same emotion that you have with excitement. And you've got 3 seconds to make a decision on which way you're going to go. And then the body will release healing hormones or it release hormones that will just totally tear you apart. So when I look back on it, I could see that I was reacting all the time because I didn't have the answers. And that's what makes us sick. It makes us sick to watch our family suffer. So anyways, my grandfather came and he stayed with us for a few days and we didn't know what to do. So of course we sent him to the hospital. And when we went to the hospital, he was complaining to us every time we went that he wasn't having a bowel movement. And he wasn't having a bowel movement for like 7 days. And I just thought that's just totally ridiculous. And if I can say this, when we would come into the hospital, you could actually smell fecal matter in the room. But it's not because he pooped. It's because the actual toxic waste was oozing out of his pores. And when people will wake up in the morning and the loved one will roll over to give the other one a kiss and they go, "Oh my gosh, please go brush your teeth." Well, we don't realize it, but that terrible smell or taste in our mouth is just hot gases rising from the bad bacteria that are in our gut while we sleep at night. So that's what was happening is my grandfather was oozing toxic gases from his pores and from his breathing. And it smelt really bad. And we complained and we kept complaining. And I think after about 14 days, we just took him out of the hospital because all they were doing was drugging him and so that he couldn't complain. And I guess nobody really wanted to go in and break up that impaction. And I guess they weren't getting paid enough. But so we brought him home. And believe it or not, my mother actually had to put a finger cot on. And I know that the listeners, this is not to upset anybody or throw anybody off, but she had to dig it out. And then we finally learned how to do an enema, which I can remember my grandparents used to have an enema bag underneath their bed. When I was only 6 years old, they would keep an enema bag there all the time. So, and I didn't even know why, but I realized years later that the enema bag was what they used to use until X-Lax took over. So we brought him home and we started doing that. And right off the bat, boy, his color changed because he was gray. He was miserable. His color changed and he was feeling much better. And I'm not saying that we saved his life or anything, but we gave him life for the time that he was alive. And that in itself, you know what, Ashley? There is nothing worse than seeing a family member, whether it's your parents or your children or your spouse, suffering, and you have the inability to take action. Now, that we got sucker punched, and we're getting sucker punched continually here. And I'll get into that maybe later. And that's the greatest thing is that, humankind is just, we all have a price tag on us and we're sold off by the pound. And this is not a conspiracy talk of mine. This is just reality, and people need to wake up to that. That planet Earth is a life-threatening adventure, and if you do not learn the rules, then the you will suffer. That's it. So, anyways, that happened, and when that happened, I have to tell you that really shook my core because my grandfather used to be in live in Newfoundland, and I used to go there every summer, and we'd go out about 6 o'clock in the morning, and we'd go cod jigging, and we're talking about 2.5 foot cod here, and you've got a string, and you're jigging it off the side of the boat, and I would go out with him. And then we would come back and we would clean the fish, and then we would put the fish in salt, and then my grandfather would then eat this, and he would eat what was called fish and brews throughout the wintertime. And that's what he actually survived on, was fish and brews, which was hardtack, which is like this bread that was so hard it was like a rock. And then he would put it with the codfish, and then he would cook it for 24 hours, and that's what he lived on. Anyways, I'm a little off track, but so
Well,
anyways,
it's really interesting because thinking about his diet, obviously there was some good stuff like omegas, but that seems like a very dehydrating diet, and there doesn't sound like a lot of vegetables. And to think about what led to his constipation if he had to have an enema bag under his bed, and to think that was a long term
well,
issue.
yeah, well, the enema bag was actually under the bed of my other grandparents.
Oh, okay.
And I saw that when I was like 6 years old. But with my grandfather, it wasn't the fish and brews that gave him the colon cancer. It was the 3 beers a day.
That'll do
Okay.
it.
Yeah. So 3 beers a day, is the best way to get colorectal cancer. So, um, and as far as the whole alcohol goes, the whole alcohol thing, there is no amount that is healthy, but people won't take that in right now because they just don't want to believe that. So, anyways, so that got me going. So, guess what I did? I hitchhiked to Gary, Indiana, and I that summer, and I studied under Dr. Wood, and I became a colon therapist. And I didn't have a lot of money, so I actually hitchhiked there, and I stayed in a tent in his backyard, and I became a certified colon therapist. So that was the start of my little adventure, and from there. Then I kept my schooling going on, got more interested in it. And then I found myself at the age of 29, and my brother calls me up, and I had a clinic in Toronto, and it was a colon therapy clinic. And I also had my school where I taught colon therapy, and I also taught a technique that I will talk about probably that's called Wolfe Deep Tissue Myofascial Release. And anyways, so he calls me up and he says, Darrell, Dad's in the hospital. And I said, why is he in the hospital? And he said, well, he didn't want to call you. He's been in there for 3 weeks, but he's got acute leukemia. And I said, so what are they saying? Well, they're saying that he only has 2 weeks to live.
Oh my gosh.
And so I said to my brother Marcel, and I want everybody to understand something, that the story is, I will not exaggerate it. I'll just tell it exactly like it is. So I told my brother, I said, go in there and get Dad released and take him to the airport as soon as possible. And my brother said, well, the plane ride will kill him. And I said, well, Marcel, you said he had 2 weeks to live, so let's fly him from Halifax to Toronto. And if he makes the plane flight, let me take care of the rest. So he calls me back about 4 or 5 hours later and said they won't release him. And I said, well, then get a baseball bat and call a lawyer and go in there and just hold the bat and take the lawyer with you. I said, get your teeth out and get our dad out of there. They don't own him, okay? And they don't know what's best for him. And so anyway, so he finally got him out of there. And when he landed in Toronto airport, my father's skin was yellow. His eyes were yellow-orange. He had cold sores on his lip, and his head was hanging down, but he was looking up at me from the wheelchair. And it was like, what do I do now? So I'm going to make this story short, and then most people aren't going to believe it, but you have to understand something. You have to remember who created you. If you could just remember who created you, and that faith is the greatest weapon that you will ever have. I had this since I was young. I knew there was only one way to be, and that was to have faith. So you better have some type of faith. So I told my father, I said, don't you worry, we're taking you home. You're going to get well. And I never allowed fear, even at that age, at 29, I was already there. I never allowed fear to come off as a stench off of me. I didn't allow it to even be within me because I was already practicing what I call a technique that I have called Braveheart. So, anyways, we go home, and I will tell you this much. I won't go through what we did. But meanwhile, remember, I'm 29, so I'm pretty fresh in the business. So, in 3 weeks later, my father had no yellow in his eyes, no cold sores, and he had his suitcases packed to go visit his sister. And when he came back 3 weeks later, they couldn't find the leukemia in his blood. So that was 6 weeks. So, anyways, that's the story. And then what happened was 9 months later, I my mother calls me up, and my mother, my mother was the type of person, if I can say this, my mother had a rough life. Remember the grandfather that had the colon cancer?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I found out later in life that my mother and her sister lived with my grandfather in a one-room shack on the cliffs of Newfoundland. Now, my grandfather was a hard man, but I liked him. I enjoyed being there, and he was kind of scary sometimes, and I think that got my adrenaline going, and I kind of like that kind of stuff, I think. I don't know. But anyways, I found out later that he actually raped my mother and uh, uh, her sister when she was 12 and her sister was 8 because her mother died when she was 12 years old. And back then, so anyways, I never really could understand the relationship. But anyways, because my grandfather actually came to live with me, and then after I found this out, I wondered how he came to live with us for a few years. But see, the thing is my mother never stopped loving him. But at the same point, when we get abused, we take on these survival techniques that aren't the best in life.
Mm-hmm.
When you're in danger, you take on survival techniques. But what happens if you don't reevaluate your life and get rid of survival techniques that could actually destroy you? So my mother became a very avid chain smoker and also an alcoholic because smoking is a good way to get rid of 30% of the oxygen in your brain so that you dull your thinking, so you don't have to think about how you're such a bad little girl or that you're not worthy of people's love. And then the alcohol is a good way to actually, if you're an alcoholic, you're trying to consume yourself. That's why it's called consumption, because it will consume your whole life and destroy you. And when you're an alcoholic, is because you have the belief that you don't have any value, and so you will self-destruct because her father taught her that she wasn't worthy and didn't have any value. So to honor her father, she would dishonor herself for life. So then my mother called me up and said, and this is only 9 months after my father, so it was wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. My mother's got tongue cancer, and she can hardly even speak. So anyways, I have her come to Toronto. She lives in Kitchener, just an hour away. And I said, please come right away. So then her husband brings her. And now the other thing is I need to tell you this, is that when my mother and father broke up, my mother would say really bad things about him, and my mother, when she would drink, would always cause trouble. And I mean, she would cause big trouble, you know. So I think in life, if you take a look at things, see, my father, when he got the leukemia, my father believed that poverty was the way, and uh, um, and that you give everything away. And my father would eat anything and everything that was inexpensive because he just believed that the more money you have, that the more corrupt you become. So we all have our own belief systems. So, and my mother, um, she was quite different than him, but so they didn't get along very well. So she would always badmouth him So, anyways, what happened is I believe that, it's amazing, but, you use your tongue to speak. And she did get tongue cancer, and she used to speak a lot of harsh things. And when she wasn't drinking, she was beautiful. So, anyways, she came. She was with me for about 2 weeks. And believe it or not, within 10 days, you could make out her words, and she was speaking clearly, and she was looking fabulous. Of course, we did all the things that we should. I put her on a detox protocol, which I can talk about. I call it the perfect day. Because if you were to create the perfect day emotionally and physically, then there would be nothing wrong with you. You cannot just look at your physical being. You have to look at the emotional being, because the emotional being creates the physical. The physical is just an extension of the health of your emotions. So, anyways, within 10 days, she was speaking well, looking great. And I was about 2 weeks into it, and I had to do a lecture in Utah. And I said, okay, Mom, I'm going to leave. And I had one of my staff stay at my house. And it wasn't but, oh man, it wasn't probably hours that I landed in Utah. And I got a call saying that your mother has gone back to Kitchener. And I don't know, that's the whole thing about life is, I could have taken on the guilt right there, because I could have flown back and then gone and dragged my mother back to my place. But I didn't do that. I stayed there in Utah to do my lecture. And that's what you need, is a brave heart. And you need to learn how to love yourself first and foremost, because if I didn't do that, I would have lived with the guilt forever that I didn't cancel the lecture and came home. But everybody has choices in this life, and all choices have consequences. So, anyways, my mother went right back to McDonald's cigarettes and drinking her 5-star. And by the time I got back, it didn't take but probably I was gone a week. I got back, and her husband called me, and I went there, and she was in bed, and her tongue had swollen twice as big as it was. See, you cannot dishonor. Every time that you dishonor yourself, it's not just the physical, it's an emotional level. The spirit gets really chipped away at. And when you start to lose your spirit, you start to lose your soul. And that's when, like cars rust, the body will rot so fast. And it just came on like a tsunami. And then she went through 6 months of hell, okay? And I mean hell, where she was in pain continually. So anyways, the moral of the story I didn't tell you is when I got called by my mother, she wanted to know if she should do what the doctors wanted her to do. I didn't tell you that story. You're going to love this. They wanted to cut a piece off of her butt and make a tongue.
Oh my
and
God.
cut her tongue out and sew a piece of her butt in for a tongue.
Oh my gosh.
Now, I am not making this up. I mean, I know it really sounds like I'm making this up, but I am not making this up. So you know what? I'll tell you what happened after that. Then I became a warrior, but I became an angry warrior, okay? I became an angry warrior, and I wanted to bring down the medical system. I wanted to hold the medical system responsible for my family. And that was a really great lesson for me, to understand that love is the answer and self-love is the cure. And that whatever you focus on, you will have. And we need to focus on the positive. And by actually focus on bringing the medical system down, I was giving them more power, and because that's just not the way that it works. So, thank God that I didn't stay in that emotional vibration. And everybody needs to learn this, that whenever you feel negative emotion for people and you can't get rid of it, then you know that is the disease.
That is so powerful. I love what you said about love is the answer and self-love is the cure. And this is exactly what we talk about on my show, is that health is not just physical. You have to take into account your emotional body, your mental body, your spiritual body, your energetic body, and your physical body. And that disease does not manifest in one level alone. When we have something that's gone on emotionally and we haven't processed it and let it go, then it festers and it grows roots into all areas. Like you said, if it'll rot from the inside, right? With emotional issues that the person is holding on to.
Yes, if I can I step back just a little bit?
Absolutely.
Thank you, Ashley. Um, here's something. So I will talk to people now, and I will say, that we need to love ourselves. And you know what? Today, that's not politically correct. I mean, you embrace it, but Ashley, you'd be surprised at how people get up on their heels against me, or they cross their arms right in front of me. And I'll say, we need to learn how to love ourselves. We need to learn how to trust, honor, respect, protect, and love ourselves first and foremost before any other human being on this planet, or we cannot stay connected to our source. And that is my belief. And then people will get up in rears and I'll go, so would you like your children to love themselves? And then they will say, of course we would. Well, yeah, because you want your children to love themselves or they won't honor themselves and they won't have value. Then they'll end up doing destructive things, right? And I'll say, okay, so now let me say this. I believe that we need to love ourselves first and foremost before our partners, our children, or anyone else. And we need to fill up our own hearts completely with love from ourselves first and foremost, so that we can be the light for our families to guide the way. And then people will actually get up and they will really come up against me, because we have been taught by different factions that self-love is being self-centered, when actually self-love is centering into yourself and giving yourself enough self-awareness to give yourself enough self-realization that you need to fill your own heart up with love. Because the way we've been taught, and this is the way I've been taught, and when I was 7 years old or 6 years old, I'm not even sure, so I'll always try to stay as correct as possible. But when President Kennedy died, my mother was standing to the left of me. My older brother was standing beside her. Then I was standing beside my older brother. Then there was my little brother. And my mother started crying when President Kennedy died, and there was that funeral 1-minute silence. And I looked up at her and I said, Mom, why are you crying? We don't even know him. And with that, she slapped me in the face so hard, I fell down on the ground. And you know what I learned from that day? That when a family member is suffering, or when anybody else is suffering, you need to suffer at the same amount or even greater than them to show your love. And that's what I call the family curse. So now I have been taught that I am to get my love from my mom, my brothers, and from the outside world. And when the outside world only throws me scraps of love, then that's all the value that I have. So I will tell you, when I was being raised, my parents one night came home after that, and the next door neighbor told me that I broke a branch off his tree, which I did not. They pulled me out of bed around 11 or 12 o'clock at night. We had boarders. They pulled my pants down and spanked me. From that minute on, my spirit was dead. From that point on, I knew that I didn't deserve to be alive, that any bit of love I got, I didn't even deserve it, and that I had no self-value. And that's what we do to our children. And that's what we do unintentionally. But, like I tell people, the worst thing that ever happens to children is they have parents. Because most parents are dysfunctional, and I'm not running parents down. They do their best. But the problem is that we have dysfunctional beliefs. Because, Ashley, I want to ask you one question. In your lifetime, when you ever did anything that we might call a wrong, did you punish yourself enough that no one else had to do it for you? Or did you need someone else to punish you on top of that?
Oh, wow.
Did you, Ashley?
No, I punished myself enough.
Well, guess what? And you're still punishing yourself from the little things that you did as a little girl, and you don't even know it because it's locked in your subconscious, and that's what's getting in the way of your relationships today. And the most important relationship, which is the relationship with yourself.
So how do you help people to see that? It's so unconscious.
Well, first of all, there'll be people out there that will think that, well, first of all, people, you know what they say to me? Okay. Especially people from my church. Do you know what they say to me?
What?
You're going new age. And I go, when has love and self-love became a new age thing? It's not new age. Love is coming of age. And until you come of age, you'll never know what that is. I mean, you have to honor the little girl or the little boy inside and heal. But the problem is, see, Ashley, people don't understand, and this is really important. You have to get this. Anybody who's listening to this, you have been sucker punched by everything and everybody you know. Most of the belief system. If I could say to you, if I could just unscrew the top of your head and dump every belief out, and we could start fresh today, that within 24 hours you would have your life back, and that we cannot do. I understand that, but remember that the subconscious is 10,000 times, and this is factual, 10,000 times stronger than the conscious mind. So the subconscious will never talk to the conscious mind, but the conscious mind can talk to the subconscious, but the subconscious will not allow it in unless you have purpose, faith, belief behind what you're saying, and you're willing to say it hundreds of times, because the subconscious is the guard dog that will not allow any belief. And the problem with the subconscious is it's the dumbest part of you or the smartest part of you, depending on the quality of your beliefs. It is also the strongest part of you or the weakest part of you. It is either the healer or it is the disease causer, depending on your beliefs. Now, the average person does not even know this. And the average person does not realize that repetition is the art of mastery. Repetition is how an Olympian is born. Repetition is how you learn a poem. Repetition is how we learn how to walk, talk, and to actually be. And repetition is what the media uses to brainwash us on a daily basis, to take our heart and soul and put it in a box that we can't even find it, so that we only process our lives through our minds, which is our subconscious, which means we're only using the information that has been downloaded unconsciously, and belief systems that we picked up from the age of 0 to 7, which is 70% of our belief systems, and 80% of those are dysfunctional. God love our parents.
Mm-hmm. And on top of that, now we're in reactive mode, like you said, because so many families have a family member that's suffering autoimmune disease, cancer, irritable bowel syndrome. There's so many people, and just even seasonal allergies. They're giving them, drugs that can cause cancer. And 70% of American adults are on at least one prescription medication. I'm sure it's similar in Canada. It's ridiculous. That means that only 30% of our adult population is considered somewhat healthy because they don't have to be on a prescription medication. So we're going around just feeling crazy because either we're the ones suffering or one of our dear loved ones is suffering from a disease. The statistics just came out in Canada as well, that 1 in 2 women will have cancer, and in the States that's already been a known statistic. So with that statistic, every single family in your lifetime will have someone suffer from cancer. And so that, like you said
Yeah.
earlier on, once we're in that a fear mode with a loved one suffering from a diagnosis, then we get into reactive mode. And once we're in reactive mode, we're so susceptible to those, like the mainstream media portraying drugs as good, for example. I really feel, and maybe, you could back this up or tell me if I'm wrong, but drug companies use commercials, for example, to feed on the reactiveness that we're in, because we've been taught for the last 150 years, we've been brainwashed as a society to think that the MD has all the answers, and we cannot heal. We need to go and get a drug, and that the body doesn't have the ability to heal itself.
You're absolutely right.
So we're in this mode where we wait to get sick, and then we go to the MD and they put us on drugs, and then we get on more drugs and more drugs and more drugs, and we give up our personal power, and we don't look within to heal. We give up our personal power to doctors, and we're in this fear mode and this kind of vicious cycle. So how do we break this cycle and start healing within and taking back our health and loving ourselves so that we can detox and heal?
Actually, Ashley, I don't believe that they're actually feeding off the fear cycle we're in. They actually have orchestrated the fear cycle. And this is not a cycle. This is a way of life. So what they've done is they've mastered the art of repetition by using the media. And as long as you're going to allow the media into your car, into your home, and into your life, then know that you will have corrupted emotions, which will give you corrupted tissues. Those corrupted tissues will be inflamed. You'll have pain. And because what they did is they did something that was so, oh my gosh, what a brilliant move they did. And what they did was, when we came down to this planet Earth, we got one really crucial GPS. And that crucial GPS is called pain. Pain is actually the most important GPS to keep you in alignment on this planet, whether it be emotionally or physically. And without it, I'd be dead already, Ashley. I would have drank myself to death. I would have smoked myself to death. I would have drugged myself to death. And when you recognize that pain is your greatest friend and not your enemy, then you will work with pain, because you'll go, wow, okay, I'm feeling out of alignment. I feel a little bit of emotional pain. That means that whatever I'm doing, I need to stop. I need to put my hands over my heart, whether in prayer mode, and I need to take a 5 seconds breath in and out and just realign myself and figure out what emotion is causing this commotion and process it, or what am I actually doing physically to myself to create this physical pain in my body. Now, what they did is they said that pain is an enemy, and soon as you have pain, you need to tell it to shut up. Now, go ahead. Tell your wife to shut up every time she wants to speak to you. When she wants to tell you that your relationship is in jeopardy and find out if it ends in divorce. Tell your body to shut up with Tylenol. Tell your body to shut up with depressive meds. You know, people that are on depressive meds, okay, they're on that type of medication because they have no self-value and they don't believe that they're worthy. You know, I deal with that all the time. It only takes me a couple hours, Ashley, to actually turn somebody around and let them and help them understand that it's not the meds that they need. It's just to know that they are valuable. They were created by God Almighty, and that they are beautiful, and that as soon as they stop looking for approval, okay, as soon as you stop looking for approval from other people and you stop taking things personal, you'll be able to get off of these meds. Now, what they've done is they've used pain as our enemy. So we're always going to suppress pain. And when you suppress pain with drugs, you are actually suppressing the spirit within. When you do that, you head into what we call a more of a unconscious mode. Okay, and that, I say this to people, and some people don't like it. But why do you think zombie movies are so popular? I mean, because between the GMO foods, the processed foods, and all the drugs and the Wi-Fi and all the things that are going on, most people are walking around like zombies. They are. I mean, okay, Ashley, it's not hard to go to the mall and find out that and see that 80% of the population over 40 looks 3 months pregnant, whether they're a male or female. Okay. And then they look 6 months pregnant with another 10 years. And then even many men look like they're ready to give birth. Meanwhile, you know what? Somebody can actually be walking around the streets or in their home, and they can be limping in a walker or have a cane, or they can have a tummy that looks like it's going to explode, or have migraines every week. And nobody in the family is alert to the fact that this is abnormal. This has become a normal way of life. We are sleeping at the wheel, and it's all because, guess what? Because we allow things like this. We allow the medical system to be our main healthcare system. Now, you have to take a look at the majority of the population and ask yourself this question. What is the value of the majority of the population? How much self-love does someone have for themselves when they pick their main health care to be a health care that's built on a foundation of cut, poison, and burn? That would be a person that's into not a self-love program, but a self-abusive program unconsciously. I'm not saying they're trying to kill themselves consciously, but they are killing themselves subconsciously and making sure that they get, okay, we all run pain body programs. Did you ever notice that some people in the family get a headache once a week? Then you've got people in your family that go into depression and hide themselves in a bedroom for 3 days out of every month. Some people need to blow up and explode at the children at least 3 or 4 times a day because they can't process their emotions. And did you ever notice, Ashley, that in families and in relationships, we will push somebody's pain button to get a reaction out of them so that we can get them to push our pain button so that we can react, and then we can continue with our dysfunctional belief programs that life sucks.
What you said was so amazing, because what you're pointing out is that we have the ability to heal ourselves and heal our emotions, but we have to start taking responsibility. When you said that we need to turn into ourselves and love ourselves first and fill ourselves up with love, that is taking responsibility for loving, for getting the love we need. And all of a sudden now we're not playing head games with people around us, trying to like get love out of them or get them to trigger us. Now we're taking responsibility. And if we love ourselves and we make it our number one goal to do self-love, then we'll be enforcing healthy boundaries. Then we'll be able to healthfully love our family, because we're not going to be playing those games anymore. So I can see a ripple effect happening when someone, takes it on. That is their number one goal, to fill themselves up with love and practice self-love, that it would be a ripple effect. I'm sure at first their family wouldn't know what to do and would kind of rebel against it, because anytime we try to change something within our life, those is sort of the crab in the bucket, right? So do you have a way that you could teach us, how can we start to do this so that we are effective at practicing self-love and not allowing our family to thwart our efforts?
Well, right off the bat, you're so right. But let's give everything a name so that people can remember things. Okay. Welcome to the family curse, and welcome to herd mentality. All right. Now, even the people that they know deep down inside that they could be wrong will be the ones that put up the biggest fight to be right. And I say that if you know in your heart what truth is, you will never look to be right. You will only look to be happy. So when you're doing this and you want to really release the brave heart within and find the true you and give up the belief systems, because Ashley, we are all actors rehearsing every day. Now, if you're in pain or suffering emotionally or physically, then you are acting as a victim. You are acting, okay, as a terrorist. When you can choose to act as the hero, save yourself so that you can show the way for your family. Now, here's the situation. Let me just take one little example here. So, Jennifer comes home and says to her husband, "You know what, honey? I'm not going to eat any more carbs. I'm not going to drink any more alcohol. And I'm going to start exercising at least 20 times a day. I'm going to start drinking structured water. And I'm going to drink at least 3 quarts of structured water a day. And I'm going to take a daily cleansing tea every day to cleanse out my organs." Oh, honey, I think that's so wonderful. Good for you. Now, Jim, he's also 20 pounds overweight because birds of a feather usually flock together. Okay. So she starts losing weight and she's lost 5 pounds. He's going, "Wow, honey, you're looking great." So now she loses 10 pounds. Ooh, now Jim's uncomfortable because Jim didn't lose any weight at all. So now he's thinking, because his subconscious has these belief systems, is there another man? Is she falling out of love with me? Why isn't she? He doesn't actually think this, but he does on a subconscious level. Why isn't she comfortable with being overweight like me? We had such a happy life, which they don't, but misery loves company. So anyway, so now Jim starts undermining her on her program until he lovingly, unconsciously knocks her off of her program. And that's the way it is. You will find that when people start to rise physically or emotionally in a family, it is very rare that the family, after, the person really starts to make change and they can actually see that the changes are much different than the herd, okay? Because, see, when you're no longer a zebra and you become a giraffe, you no longer fit. So then what happens is you get ostracized until you find your place again. So understand that when I first really got this and I understood what I was doing to my family and myself, I will tell you, Ashley, and I mean this in the best way, but my family called me Buddha. They said, "Who are you trying to be, Jesus? Do you think you walk on water? You think you're better than us?" And I'll tell you something. It took months, probably about the same length of time to birth a baby as it did before I stopped getting hounded by my family and relatives that I was into some kind of cult or something. So understand that the media and even other organizations that I won't get into have orchestrated a plot that self-love is not just being self-centered and selfish, but it could even be viewed as a sin. I have people that say to me, no, my creator's going to heal me. And I'll say, listen, it's about teamwork. Your creator created you, and your creator created you out of total love. So if you don't totally love yourself, then how could you be connected to your creator? And that's how I usually try to put it back to them. Because listen, just because something sounds foreign, just because you can't process it right away, don't throw it in the garbage. Just put it on the shelf and let it gently but lovingly just kind of put it on simmer and find out if it's worth embracing. Listen, just because the majority of the population does something, doesn't mean it's good, because the majority of the population, Ashley, the majority of the population only has 2% joy a day. Now, does that sound like something we really want to brag about? And I will tell you that when I got into this whole Braveheart thing, honoring, respecting, protecting, and loving myself first and foremost, did you know what the first thing I did when I woke up, I called a family meeting, and this happened years ago, and I mean years ago when my son Sage, who's 19, was just a little boy. And I got everybody into the room and I said this. I said, and I have 4 children, and I said to them, I said, listen, all of you, you need to understand something. Your father's dysfunctional. I've taught you dysfunctional things. I've learned. I'm awake right now. So when you're suffering and in pain, chances are I was the one that taught you that. So please don't hate me for it, but come to me so that we can work together, so that I can help to erase and replace belief systems that truly honor who you truly are for your God-given purpose, not my purpose, and not the dysfunction that was passed on down to me as a family heritage. I said, the family curse must stop. And I will tell you that my children are rocking and rolling. Now, my 2 boys are really rocking. My girls, they're still kind of rocking back and forth, but they're getting it. And I need to show compassion, not sympathy. And I need to observe, never judge them, and be there to empower them. I told all my children, and I told everybody in my family that you are forgiven for everything that you'll ever do for the rest of your life and everything that you have ever done, and that you can absolutely tell me absolutely anything, and we will sit down and discuss it, because I've done everything and I've been everything, and I am no one to judge. I am here, and I'm blessed to be able to help you. And that's what I created years ago, because we have to bring love home. We have to bring health home. We have to make our homes into a love health zone. That means that from now on, no smokers, no drinkers, no refined foods, okay? And if you come home and you find that you're, especially men, you're pissed off at your day because it didn't go right, then you wipe your mind off at the door before you come in, and be prepared to only hug and love and show compassion and give compliments to that beautiful family, because that's the only way that we're going to rise. And from now on, when you come home and you get into the same silly type of argument and you start pushing each other's pain buttons, you stop, you shut your mouth, and you walk over, you give each other a hug, and you melt your hearts together. Breathe in and out, 5 seconds in and out, until you feel your hearts have melted. And I promise you, when you step away, that which you believed needed to be discussed, yelled about, and won never mattered, because you were only running a program.
I love that. Advice is so powerful, and the fact that you pointed out that the majority of people only have 2 or 3% of joy in their life, is it really worth holding on to that argument? Is it really worth trying to win that argument? Because we're shooting ourselves in the foot every day. We are responsible for how much joy we can have in our life, and we need to let go of the belief system that we don't deserve it. And we need to take on the belief system that we do deserve it, and we deserve it for ourselves, but we also deserve it for our family. Because like you said, wipe your mind off at the door. Don't bring your bad day in with you and take it out on your family, because you're just shooting yourself in the foot. You're spreading unhappiness and disease in your family, and that's going to turn back around on you. If your family was in a boat in the middle of the ocean, would you try to sink that boat, or would you try to keep it afloat? And that's like that was when you were describing what you were saying just now. I was imagining people come home every day and they're like sinking their family into the ocean by bringing their bad day in with them, and then fighting and bickering and passing on the belief systems unconsciously that they learned from their grandparents and from their parents. God knows how many generations we've kind of passed on these negative patterns.
Well, you know what? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say it's easy to see it in others. Like you can see in a best friend, oh wow, the grandfather did this to the dad, so the dad did this to my best friend, and you can kind of see it in others. But when it comes to our own family, we tend to have blind spots, and until we step out, until we step back, and we start to go, oh, every time I start a fight, every time I do this repetition, this is just a program. This isn't me. I learned this. This is learned behavior. I know and what makes it feel so real in the moment is that we have emotion invested. So yeah, we're feeling angry or frustrated, but what we don't realize a lot of the time is that anger and that frustration is from when we were 7 years old and we're still feeling it. It's still lit up in our neurology like a gestalt because we didn't take the time to process it and heal it. And so in the moment when we're fighting with our spouse, it feels like as though it's real now. But if we step back, we can realize that we're not actually upset at them. It was a negative emotion that we've been feeding and buying into since we were 7. And we need to step back and be able to process that, let it go, and stop holding our past against us.
What people really don't want to see is that we are robots. The strongest part of our system is our subconscious. And that is built on beliefs. And whatever you think about, talk about, and you do the most is what those beliefs are. And those beliefs will either, like I said, make you into a hero or a victim. And here's the deal. Did you know this, Ashley? The story doesn't have to be true, but the longer the story's told, the more people believe it, because people do not think logically today. They react instead of, whenever we feel stress or tension coming, we should put our hands over our heart, breathe in 5 seconds in and out. And if we only did that 3 times, there would be so many times that you wouldn't have to clean up a mess in your family. We're actually just, if you're having the same discussion or argument about the same thing, which a lot of people do for years, am I right or wrong?
Mm-hmm.
Well, guess what? You're only trying to protect that dysfunctional belief. Now, whether people believe this one or not, here's the good one. Here's the kicker. Everybody in a family has a subconscious contract with each other that they will not touch each other's dysfunctional beliefs, that they will honor them. And that is all it is. You know what? I'm going to tell you. If I can tell I'll try to make it short, but I want to tell you this little story. And I actually do this story for people who, I will tell this story for people that are, especially teenagers who are considering suicide. I do a lot of consultations for families and for teenagers that are in real trouble. And that is this. I say to them this way, look it, we are energy beings. You don't have to believe this today, and nobody needs to believe this, but just remember something. We make stuff up. We make stuff up every day. And you know what? Everybody lies. So if I'm going to lie, I'm going to tell a good one. Okay? So anyways, I was hanging out in heaven, and I noticed this planet called Earth. And I looked down, okay? And I said, wow, that's a beautiful planet. Look at all the adventures down there. All right. And the thing is that there are a lot of adventures down here. We live forever. I believe that as Einstein said, that energy never dies. It just changes form. So when you're down here, life is as short as a fart, and we don't need it to stink like one. It can be full of joy. And it's when we came down here, we understood something. And this is it, Ashley. Do you know when people say, oh, I can see it. The world's changing. I can see how there's going to be peace. Or they say the world's ending. So you've either got the doomsdayers, or you've got the world is going to just change and everybody's going to fall in love. Well, for one thing, Ashley, the world has never changed since the beginning. There has always been wars, and everything that's ever happened is just that we kill cleaner now. So when you come down here, you opted into the adventure of a lifetime, a life-threatening adventure. And you said, when I come down here, when we're born, our parents love us. We're just like little spirits. They just can't get enough of us, holding us, kissing us, not kicking us, but holding us, but they do kick us. Okay. When we start to walk and talk, we start acting like them, don't we? That's who we mimic. That's who we're with. And then we get punished for it. So we understand that there is conditional love. It is not unconditional love. So we decided that we would come down here and then we would lose ourselves, then to rise up like the phoenix, to find ourselves, to become the hero. And everybody wants to become a hero. So I'm telling everybody out there, no matter how bad your life looks, no matter how much you believe that you are worthless, that's just a story you told yourself. If you wanted to, and you were willing to, and here's the biggest thing, if you're just willing to repeat that, I love and approve of myself, I am everything, I no longer need to take anything personal, I no longer need approval from anyone, I will only honor my physical body. And when I feel any type of negative emotion, I will calm down and I will think about it and I will think about what triggered it, and then I will move forward. And if we were to do that, so understand this, you are not going to save the world. You are not going to bring peace about the world. You are not going to end world starvation, because world starvation is man-made. God does not create junk. Man creates all this stuff. And you're here to learn how to love yourself totally so that you can shine the light for others to come out of that tunnel of desperation.
That is so well said. Thank you so much for sharing that. We really would benefit as, individuals, if enough of us took this on. We would really create a ripple effect, and understanding that there's we came into this world as a contract, like I love that idea that we came in choosing our parents, choosing the life-threatening adventure, and it's up to us. We get to decide whether we're going to have joy or whether we're going to have misery, and that is really up to us. We get to decide what kind of quality of life do we want to live. I'd love for you to share, let's go back and just share a little bit about, you mentioned something about bad bacteria in the stomach causing bad breath. And I know it's totally switching subjects, but I'm very curious. So is it that we have bad bacteria build up in our stomachs? And if so, how do we get rid of it?
And actually, you didn't change the subject, because guess what? Your bad bacteria are your bacteria, not your bad bacteria, but your bacteria are actually, are you ready for this? The most intelligent part of you, second to the heart. Okay? Your bacteria, okay, they send messages to the brain 9 times, where the brain only sends one message back. And do you know what the message back that it sends? Is, I got the message. So for every 9 messages the bacteria sends to the brain only sends one back. Now, your bacteria, okay, live within us, okay, and our bacteria only believe that we are a tunnel of fecal matter. That's all they know, okay? So, but those bacteria make up 80% of your immune system. Why do you think that when people become ill, that their intestines fall down and out? Because that's their immune system falling down and out. And when you see that they are having distension in their stomach, that's because their immune system is blowing up. Now, when your bacteria go from good to bad, they give off bad signals to the brain, which causes people to become grumpy, depressed, anger, irritable. I don't know why I'm in a bad mood. I just am, okay? So, this is it. And life is much more simple, Ashley, than the medical system and all the other practitioners out there want to believe. And it really comes down to we need to stop treating people. We need to train them. When people come to get treated by whether it's any type of practitioner, natural or medical, if we're not going to train people to master their own body, then guess what? I don't care. Natural health practitioners better take a look in the mirror, Because if you've got people coming to you for treatment for more than 6 weeks to 3 months, then you better take a look at the way you are treating your patients, because you're not training them. And when you train your patients that the core is everything, that the bacteria actually regulate the brain. And when your bacteria go from good to bad, they send negative messages to the brain. And those negative messages create the anxiety that we feel. And that anxiety causes cortisol, causes adrenaline hormones to be released. And when that happens, then guess what, Ashley? We are now releasing hormones that create inflammation. That inflammation, okay, creates pain. And that pain, if we were taught, like I said in the beginning of this, that pain is your friend and you're off track, instead of taking drugs to suppress it, or because you haven't been trained, you're just going to live in pain. If that pain continues, then a new thing happens, a safety mechanism, and that's fibrin. And the biggest problem that we see in people today is continual, long-standing, low-grade inflammation that's causing 24/7 fibrin production. Now, fibrin is these microscopic little tissues that are being created by your system so that they will go in and wall off the inflammation wherever it is in the physical part of the body so that the inflammation does not spread. It's also creating the fibrin to wall off, because soon as tissue becomes inflamed, it becomes weakened. And soon as tissue becomes weakened, then it becomes a parasite party. The worms come, the fungus comes, the bad bacteria comes, the viruses come, and they want to attack the weakened tissue. It's just like in the jungles of Africa. There's, a zebra, and he's at the back of the herd. He's older and he's limping. Well, he will be taken down by the predator and he will become the prey. So your body creates a wall, and that wall becomes internal scar tissue. You're going to love this, Ashley, but guess what? Did you know that the medical system does not even believe in scar tissue internally? Everybody thinks it's from surgery or from some car accident. But we have more scar tissue in us than we have ever had in history. And just because it's not seen on an x-ray, it doesn't exist for the medical system. And guess what? I don't care if you're a chiropractor, physiotherapist, massage therapist, acupuncturist, or whatever therapist you want to be. If you're not working on helping to remove the scar tissue that is accumulating in the human body, then you are not getting rid of the blocks that are blocking the physical flow of lymph and blood and the energy flow, which is energy. We are energy beings. Now, what happens is this scar tissue will continue until, guess what? You have a mass of scar tissue in you. What do you think a fibroid is in the breast? What do you think a fibroid is in the pelvic region or around the uterus or the ovaries or the prostate? And there is not one condition, Ashley, that doesn't involve scar tissue, because wherever there's inflammation, there's scar tissue. So even if you get rid of the inflammation, if you don't remove the scar tissue, then you're dealing with a weak link. So whether you're talking about a painful joint from arthritis of autoimmune disease, or whether you're talking about colitis, or whether you're talking about Crohn's disease, these are all inflammation and scar tissue problems. And if you let it go further, you're talking about a tumor. Do you think a tumor is all mutated cells? Of course it isn't. A tumor is mainly just made out of fibroscar tissue, and then it starts, and what fibroscar tissue does, because it cuts down circulation and even creates low-grade inflammation unless removed, it will continue to grow like a spider web. And it will go through your body, and it will wrap itself around organs. It'll wrap itself around joints. Why do you think you don't have the range of motion you used to have when you were younger? The difference between a younger person and an older person is the amount of scar tissue that they have in them. Oh, wait a minute, that's not true, because I don't have any, Ashley. I have very little scar tissue in me. So, the average person goes from a cane to a walker to a wheelchair to the nursing home or to the grave prematurely. Now, that can all end once we realize that we have to remove this beef jerky that's inside of us. Have you ever eaten a bad piece of meat and you've seen it and you try to chew on that scar tissue that's in that beef? Well, that's the same thing. When you see somebody limping, okay, I'm going to say this and then I'll open up. I have a money back guarantee that anybody comes to me and they can already have their surgery booked for a hip surgery, knee surgery, ankle surgery, or even if somebody has, doesn't matter what they have to have, what type of surgery, that it's about scar tissue and that the body will rebuild cartilage, rebuild tendons, rebuild muscle. That is just a fib. Even when it comes to a knee problem, that we have a money back guarantee that in the first treatment, we will do more with my Wolfe deep tissue myofascial release technique than they've had done on all other treatments up until that point, or we'll give them their money back. And the reason why is because life is simple. Bring it down to simplicity. Listen, I was in Sedona just last week. I was in at this retreat place. They want me to come down and do a training course there of my whole life coach course in my deep tissue. And I was talking to the lady there, and I was talking about how we can remove fibroids as big as well, I've worked on a lady just 2 months ago, had a fibroid 9 inches by 7 inches by 1 inch thick. And after 18 days, we had it down to 40% of its size. Now, who can do that? So this lady that's there assisting them says, wait a minute, I've got a fibroid I've had for 6 years and it's in my breast area. And I said, well, would you like me to get rid of it? Now, she's going to do a testimonial for me, so I will back this up. It'll be on Facebook and it'll be on YouTube. And anyways, it took me 13 minutes and I broke down 85-90% of an egg-sized fibroid. And she said that she has been working using DMSO essential oils and doing what I call my nutritional and emotional perfect day. And she says that, and this has only been 10 days and she can't find it anymore.
Yes, I love it. I love that you get such powerful results. I'm so happy I am that you're here sharing this with my listeners. You know, when I went to massage therapy college in Canada, and it's a 3-year program. It's not like down in the States where it's like, you know, a few months. And I studied, I went into the hospitals and I did outreach, and we learned about scar tissue, and that if you don't get the inflammation down right away, it's going to go out of control like a spider web, and then it pulls, it adheres to the healthy tissue, and then it rips, and then it creates more, and it rips and it creates more, and it'll just go out of control and make the range of motion less and less and less until you get a hold of that inflammation. And that there's so much benefit to deep tissue and myofascial release, but there's not a lot of practitioners that are trained in the techniques that get the results that you get. So I'm very excited that you teach this and that you do this. To be able to get your and another thing about the cartilage is that I could not believe it. It blew my mind away. My anatomy teacher was a MD, neurosurgeon from Europe, and he said, when you have arthritis for life, the body cannot regrow cartilage. And I thought to myself, this is ridiculous that they're teaching this to us, because I know the body can and this was back when I was 19. I knew the body could regrow cartilage. You give it the nutrition it needs, you give it the raw building blocks, and it can grow. I mean, it's absurd that MDs to this day are still portraying this myth that we cannot regrow cartilage. And I've seen people not go into surgeries when they so-called needed a hip replacement, and they went the natural route and they were able to heal their hip. And I love that you are busting this myth. Yes, we can regrow cartilage. We just need to help our body to heal itself, give it the raw building blocks it needs. So I'm thrilled that you do that. And absolutely, listeners, if you're on the operating waiting list, you've got to just, try this route first. Operation should be absolute last resort, end of the line. It should not be, I have pain for so long, I guess I need a new knee. I mean, that's just ridiculous to think that is the accepted norm.
Can I tell 2 stories?
Absolutely.
First story is called Medical Mafia. I wrote a booklet called Medical Mafia. I'll make it short. if people want it, they can call us and we'll download it to them, or they can get it from me. But the reality is, back in 1910, when the AMA was just coming to be the American Medical Association, they started and they were almost going bankrupt. The Rockefellers came in with $100 million and said that we will give you this money. And if you can actually close down 110 colleges, universities that are in the natural health field, you can have that money and we will funnel you more money on a continual basis. But when you do that, you are only allowed to open up colleges and universities that only sell our drugs and only teach what we teach. So understand, up until 1910, we were the way. And then what happened is that the AMA were called quacks by the average citizen, and then eventually that got turned around onto us, and we became quacks after they did the book burning. So what happened here is that we've had over 100 years of being sucker punched. So you have to understand that even when it comes to massage, Ashley, you cannot get rid of scar tissue with your hands, and you cannot get rid of it with an adjustment. You guys, I have a technique that we use, and I don't challenge anyone, but I'm just saying that if I can find something, I'm the type of person that I want the most simple, most effective, and meaning cost effective for my patients. I want to empower my patients. I come from an empowering place. When you go to a practitioner, if you go for treatments and you leave there and you're only good until the next treatment, then you need to find another practitioner. And if you go to a practitioner that doesn't make you feel empowered, that you can start taking action that day, and he makes you feel like you need a pair of Nikes, then you need to run. Because you know what? Until you get trained to master your own body, you will be at the beck and call of everyone. And I will say this much, that every therapy has its place, but even the massage therapy course for 3 years, when you're done, they tell you not to work on the spine. They tell you not to go deep. And that's because they're in bed with the government and they're in bed with the medical system. And that's because they want their government grants and their approvals. Mm-hmm. Nobody's going to approve of me. I don't get government grants. And far as anybody from the government or any other sanction, they would say that I'm radical. Well, guess what? So was Jesus. So was Mandela. To be radical means that you're going to give people back their power. And the story I wanted to tell you is this. I just came back from Vegas. I opened up for IACT, which is the International Colon Therapist Association there. And those videos will be going up online. But I had a gentleman come to me, and this gentleman has been in a wheelchair for 6 years. He actually dove into a lake, and he hit a rock. And what happened is in his cervical spine, they had to put a wire. That wire eventually started to disintegrate, and it caused an abscess in his cervical spine that was so big, when they cut it out, it was actually rotting away the bone, and they took part of the bone. And what happened is, when they did the surgery, they did a little nick in the spine, but they didn't cut the spine all the way through, but the nick caused scar tissue. So then what happened was the scar tissue wrapped around the spinal column, and he's been in a wheelchair for 6 years. Now, this gentleman, Ashley, is coming here in 5 weeks. Now, I'll tell you what happened. I worked on him for 4 hours, okay? And after 4 hours, guess what? We had him standing with our help. He went home the next day, and he went into his walker, okay? Oh, now, he's still in the wheelchair, but he's using the walker. He came back 2 days later. I did 6 hours work on his knees, his hips, and I worked on his lower back. And I worked, guess what? I worked for over an hour just in his pelvis area, around his prostate and his bladder. And guess what? It was right after I finished, it was the first time he peed on his own in 6 years without a catheter.
Oh my gosh.
Now, I'll tell you one other story. This is actually going to go online, and people are going to be able to see it. Right on my website, if they go to Doctor of Detox or the International Training Institute of Health, they'll see where I'm actually working on a lady that has a fibroid the size of a small orange, and I actually pull it apart in 20 minutes. So, and they'll actually see another gentleman who has prostate cancer that hasn't peed correctly for 20 years. I worked on him for 20 minutes and he went to the bathroom instead of having a 2-ounce pee. He peed, he said, well, you'll see it. He said that he peed at least 12 to 16 ounces. So he's now peeing again because the scar tissue was wrapping around his bladder. So understand something. People can come to me and they can say, I got to have a shoulder operation. It takes me about an hour and a half to actually get it to the point where it'll heal again. A knee only takes, one knee will take about 40 minutes. An ankle will take about 25 minutes. So understand that what we use is a technique where I use my elbow and we go in on a 45-degree angle and we don't tear anything. We're pulling the old beef jerky apart, allowing the blood and the lymph to come back in and to help the energy supply to actually move. Because when you have beef jerky, remember, you're not just stopping the flow of lymph and blood, you're stopping the energy flow that communicates with the brain.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. And then coupled with the emotional work that you do as well, I imagine is that a 1-2 punch to really support the body in healing itself.
Yes, well, I'll just give you a little synopsis, and we actually teach all this. I teach everything that I do. It's called Whole Life Certification, and just know this, Ashley, that this is for you. If you ever want to take my Whole Life Certification, or you want to take my Wolfe Deep Tissue Training, or you want to come online and take my Braveheart training, it's all free to you because of the work you do. Now, what I'd like to say here is that I created what I believe to be the most important step for every individual. And that is that I created what's called the perfect day nutritionally, physically, and the perfect day emotionally. So what we do is we send out a script, a nutritional script to people, and it's all about self-empowerment. And it's a general outline on what they do from the minute they wake up and they take their head off the pillow until they go to bed. They review that for 1 week, and then they call me back, and then I tape the audio, and we go over it for an hour. And then what happens is they have their protocol because we need them to do their homework because they are going to be the one that saves themselves. It'll be nobody else. So now they've got the protocol, and they also get my direct phone number. And this is my direct phone number, and they have it for life, and there's no extra charge, and I will be with them for the rest of their life as long as I exist on this planet, and there is no extra charge. So then we also gave them what is called the emotional 33-day awakening protocol, which they take 2 weeks to read because it has to be double the time because the emotional is what actually dictates how you're going to treat and eat yourself. So, when you're in a bad mood, you're eating ice cream. When you're in a good mood, you're making good choices. When you're in a good mood, you're releasing hormones and chemicals in the body that are healing. When you're in a bad mood, you are self-destructing. So they will take 2 weeks to go over the emotional protocol. Then I will call them, and I also send them out what's called emotionally fit for life audio that they have to listen to a minimum of 6 to 12 times. And just like today, a lady called from Paris at 5:30 this morning and said, Dr. Wolfe, I have to cancel tomorrow because you told me that the only thing you want me to do is to be true to myself. So I need to cancel my appointment. I've only listened to the audio 4 times. And I said, listen, I love it. See, now you're honoring yourself. So call Denise, and Denise will rebook you, and we will do it when you are ready. So we need to honor each other and ourselves. So then they call me. I tape the audio of the emotional consultation, and then we tweak both things. And people can call me. If they had to call me 10 times a day, I would take the call. I would get back to them. So this is how it is. Let's really make a difference, and let's make every person into a practitioner. And I will tell you this right now, that everybody out there can be a practitioner. Even us practitioners like to make our patients feel like we're glorified, we're chosen, we have some special technique, or we are totally blessed, or it takes 20 years. My whole life coach course is only 6 days, but I guarantee everyone, and when they come, that if I haven't taught them more valuable information than they've ever learned when it comes to nutritional and emotional, that it's free. And then my deep tissue course is 7 days. And I tell every practitioner, and we have naturopaths, chiropractors, massage therapists, steel workers, housewives, you name it, coming to this course, and they have the same money back guarantee. So I make this guarantee not because it's a sales pitch. I make this guarantee because we've been sucker punched, and healing is simple.
I'm so excited to promote that. I definitely want to make sure that my listeners know about this. Do you do this? How often do you lead these courses?
Well, we just finished one. The next one that's going to be happening is September, and it's on my itioh.com site. And it's first we start off with the whole life coach, take a day off, then we go into the Wolfe Deep Tissue. 90% of the people that come take both courses because they want the whole thing, and then we certify them. And then if they actually have a clinic or they have an actual practice, we promote them on our website. And every slideshow, every booklet, all my training, everything I've ever did, I hand it over to them just like a franchise. So this is what I'm going to do is I want to upset the apple cart out there because it needs upsetting. And the other thing is I'm also doing a training in Mexico in January, a full training, and I'm also doing a full training in Ireland in October, and we're setting one up right now in Florida and another one coming up in Greece. So yeah, and that's it. And then with my Braveheart course, it's full, but the next openings for that is I'm doing my Braveheart course November. I think it's November the 4th, and it actually goes 33 days, and that course is only $295. But we're gonna take $100 off for everybody that listens to your show, and they for $195 they can take my Braveheart course. And what happens is they can do it online on their own time, or they can attend it 5 hours Saturday and Sunday. Then we take a 2-week break, and they go and work with it. Then we do a Saturday and Sunday again for 5 hours. Then we take a 2-week break. And then a week later, we do a 5-hour on Sunday, and then they pass their 33-day Braveheart. And what happens is I don't care who the person is. By the time they're done 33 days, they will have not made all the changes, Ashley, but what they will know is that they are the answer, and that love is the answer and self-love is the cure. And they will know that they have the tools. I only have 12 steps. It only takes an extra 20 minutes a day to do my 12 steps. And it will go in and reprogram and get rid of the dysfunctional beliefs that are locked in your subconscious. And if they practice this, they will rebirth the new them within 9 months. And that's still my guarantee. And we still offer a money-back guarantee. So we've made everything inexpensive so that the single mother, the pensioner, everyone deserves the right to joy.
Thank you so much. This is so in alignment with what I'm doing with the podcast, and I'm sure it's in alignment with my listeners. I hope all my listeners jump on board and do it. They can either do it live or they can do it online. Is that great?
Yeah, well, what we do is they can do, well, the Braveheart's just online.
Okay.
But the whole life coach certification for the nutritional and the emotional, the 6-day training, we only take 12 people to come into the class, but then we take unlimited online, so they will still get it. So we have a real call for people wanting to be here and work right with me, right in front of me. And then with the deep tissue, it has to be hands-on. It's the only way, because in the deep tissue, we have emotional training plus the deep tissue work, because Ashley, people need to get this today. There is not one physical problem in the human body that was not orchestrated by a dysfunctional belief or an unprocessed emotion. And listen, where's the best place to hide emotional stuff that you can't deal with? Well, in your poop. And that's why a lot of people will say, oh, you make me sick to my stomach. I feel nauseous. I've got knots in my stomach. I'm twisted. I got butterflies. It just goes on and on and on and on.
Mm-hmm. Or that's a pain in the butt.
Yeah, that's a pain in the butt. So, yeah, and what we're doing is for your listeners, if they want to go to docofdetox.com/booklets, they will be able to get the Emotional Fit for Life audio, which we usually charge $45 for. They can have it for free. And another one called The Best Life Ever, where I actually go through and I talk about situations and that most of us get into. And then they will also get some booklets that will explain how scar tissue and inflammation go all the way to cancer and autoimmune disease, the whole thing. Okay.
Wonderful. And then the course that you mentioned that you're giving the listeners $100 off, how would they redeem that when they go to your website?
Well, we'll make sure that we give it to you to put up on your website.
Okay, great.
And
Excellent.
and they can have it. And what I'll do is I will have my staff give you a call right away, and we have a page already built for you. So they will be able to. They'll give you the link, and then they can redeem that right away.
Okay, great. So that link, listeners, is going to be in the show notes of today's podcast at learntruehealth.com. Oh, thank you so much for coming on the show. I know that we could have you on the show for hours, and I'd absolutely definitely want to have you back on the show because I know we just scratched the surface. Dr. Darrell Wolfe, it has been such a pleasure. Listeners, please visit docofdetox.com and also docofdetox.com/booklets so that you can, is it booklets with an S at the end?
It's docofdetox.com. Yeah, it's booklets.
Great. That's going to be in the show notes of today's podcast, along with the code, so that you can receive $100 off his very affordable course, which is amazing. Thank you so much for putting this out there and making it affordable for all of us, because we need to take control of our health, and that's exactly what this podcast is about. It's about empowering the listener to get the tools they need to take back their health, take back their life. No longer are we victims of the system that we grew up in, of our past? We are no longer victims. We have the power to change our life and to have as much joy in our life as we want, and we deserve it.
Yes, we want everyone to take back their love because they are beautiful, and we love you all. And just know that you can end the suffering, because you shouldn't have been suffering in the first place, because you never did anything wrong. When you came down here to this planet, you did not get a manual, and the manual, when you did get it, was broken, and you've never done anything wrong. So stop punishing yourself and live the life of your dreams. Thank you, Ashley.
Thank you so much. Enjoy what you heard today on your episode of the Learn True Health podcast. Did something move you, inspire you? Did you get great information that's going to change your life? Awesome. That's exactly what I'm here to do, is to help you gain your health back. Please turn around and share this. If this is something that's helped you in any way, share this with those you love. Love the Learn True Health podcast and want to support us? Awesome. You can go to takeyoursupplements.com and you can support us that way. You'll get access to amazing supplements that are just really great quality for a great price. And there'll be someone on the other end of the line to help you pick out your supplements that are right for you. That's takeyoursupplements.com. Or join our membership, learntruehealth.com/join. That's another great way to support our podcast, support our movement, and you'll be supporting yourself. Gain more information, wonderful videos, wonderful trainings, and you'll also be able to share those with those you love as well. So go to learntruehealth.com/join. Want something fun for free? Go to learntruehealth.com, and right there on the front page, you'll see where you can get our free cookbook. I spent a lot of time making it, and it was so much fun. It's really delicious, healthy recipes. And you can also get our 7-day doctor course. Right there, it's 7 days of naturopathic videos sent right to your inbox, and you can learn from top naturopaths on how to gain health naturally. So that's takeyoursupplements.com for wonderful supplements. learntruehealth.com/join to join our awesome membership, which is only open for a limited time. you can get our free healthy cookbook, and you can also get for free 7 days of wonderful naturopathic videos sent to you. Just go to learntruehealth.com and you'll see it right there on the front page. Thank you so much for being a listener, and thank you for sharing and helping others. Let's spread this information and turn this ripple into a tidal wave.